Hey guys, welcome to a PlayStation conversation. I am here with Greg Miller.
Hey.
Greg, you played a game this week.
I did. I went and played The Last of Us. Andrew.
Oh my God.
We've seen The Last of Us. We've seen the E3
Sure.
demos. We know a little bit about it. Seen the trailers. This was hands-on. I got to pick up the controller and play as Joel, the only playable character. Play as Joel for probably like 20 minutes, a little bit more than that.
Wow, and
Yeah.
was this the E3 demo? Was this the demo we've seen?
Totally different demo. No,
New content.
This was what was exciting to me when they started talking about it, because they gave a little presentation beforehand, is
Sure.
that this was kind of like what we had all thought we'd be seeing early on. This was us against the infected, really. This was us out in the world. If you're not familiar with the story of The Last of Us, I don't know why the hell you'd be watching this video. But Joel and his partner Tess, they are smugglers. They're trying to smuggle Ellie across the country, get her out of the quarantine zone, get her off to this other gang, the Fireflies. We don't know much about them yet.
Ellie's the girl that you've seen. Used to look like Ellen Page, a little younger now.
Yeah. Played by Chrissy Seaver from Growing Pains. Hello, Ashley Johnson. Anyways, and so they leave Boston. That's the quarantine zone. They're in a quarantine zone in Boston. And then my demo picked up with them just getting out of it.
Okay.
And they're actually having an argument right outside because we don't know what, but Tess is like, I believe it this time. Jill's like, how many times have we heard this story? Making me think that the whole reason Ellie's so important is that they think she's, the cure to the infection.
Okay.
This fungal infection, the mushroom people, but I'm about to get to that. Anyways, destroyed Boston. What was cool is you get out of the walled quarantine zone. This is one of the last quarantine zones in the United States, they said. And Boston's just smashed to smithereens. It's broken up all over the place because when the infection hit and they put people in these zones, I guess their last line of defense was to come, and the military bombed all of Boston trying to kill everybody. And it worked for a while, they said, but then infected popped back up.
And is this all is this from cutscenes? Like, what are they literally having this like expository conversation? Where
No, they are, because Ellie, the character, has never been outside of the quarantine zone.
Okay.
So when she comes out for the first time, she says something along the lines of like, "Oh my God, I guess these are what these look like up close. They're the cockamamie buildings." And Tess explains how the military came in and bombed them and all this stuff along that lines. And they do a couple interesting things to explain that, because beforehand I got the demo right. Naughty Dog's talking about the infected. They revealed we were going to talk about that, in that there was two different stages we were about to see of infected. The first being these things called runners. Runners look a lot like you and I. Their faces are a little bit worse.
Well, come on, feel nicer than that.
They look a lot like me, for sure. And they got like conjunctivitis on their eyes. Like
Okay.
so their eyes are a little bit glossy, glazed over or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And what interesting, all about this, of course. We've done a lot of coverage here about the ants. This is all really from the cordyceps virus.
They watch like a BBC documentary and they learn all about it.
If you ever watch the ants in that video, as the brain virus fungus is making them climb up, the ants look like they're struggling against the thought, right? And that's what's happening with the runners. And Naughty Dog, Neil Druckmann was saying that, or maybe it was Bruce, but either one of them was saying that, these runners still have a sense of humanity. They still somewhat, on some level, know what they are doing is wrong. So there was a lot of body movement for them, right? Because when
we're
they
getting
see
into
you,
it now.
they run, yeah. But when they're walking around, it was almost like they were shifting, like not like zombie walk, like I'm sure I kind of looked like, but kind of like they were struggling not to come at me. Like there was like that second of, I don't want to do that, but then they run at you and they.
Are they like running and they change direction halfway through, or is it literally like they continue the action, they just don't?
Oh, they can. Once they're running, they're pretty much running. But in the beginning, it looks like the way their shoulders are back, that they're trying to fight it a little bit more.
Sounds like a shambler would have been a better name than a runner.
Yeah, well then they run. Then they do run, and they run.
Okay.
They usually travel in packs. There's a bunch of them. So like once one sees you, they come at you. And this was the big thing for me from the demo, right, is the sound of The Last of Us. I wasn't expecting the sound to be such a big part of it, right? There's very little music, so at least in the part I played. So when we started making our way into Boston, it was totally listening to your footfalls, listening to rain eventually coming down. You get inside one of the destroyed buildings and you hear it tapping against the glass and stuff. And at first you think it's just this ambiance thing of it's post-apocalyptic, but then it's really important to the runners and then what they call the clickers, which we've seen before, the guys with the hole-on mushroom thing, right?
Yeah.
They walked us through the virus, and what's happening with this cordyceps virus for humans is that it starts sprouting out of your eyes. And so like it's the living hell as a runner, right, that you're still aware something's wrong, but you can't stop it, and you're like all primal about your instincts. But then once it's all the way out of your eyes, it becomes that hardened shell mushroom head thing that they got going on, and they can't see it all. Clickers can't see it all. But then their hearing is souped up, so like all their other senses are amplified. Hearing is super that, and then what they do, since they can hear so well now, is they're called clickers. So they click. We talked about it there. They're not communicating to each other. They're using echolocation like bats.
Okay.
So, and it's bouncing back to their ears so they can see what's around.
To your left.
So like, that was for sure. This is like, I think Walking Dead. I had them on up at noon. Walking Dead survival instincts, right? And they talked about how they wanted to make small groups of the undead in their game really scary. And I think from what I played of The Last of Us, it's so far in this one instance doing it better than the other games I've ever seen. Because I came into this one area, and first off, Tess and Ellie are following me. Whatever I do, they do. They follow my lead as a character, so I don't have to worry about it.
So Tess is with you?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Which obviously, I think something bad happens to Tess.
Right, because she's not in the later
game when she's not around anymore. It's like, uh-oh. Anyways, and then there's even a conversation where she's like, maybe after this one we'll get out of this. You know what I mean? Oh no, you're saying all the things.
I'm one day from retirement.
Exactly, she's saying all this stuff. But like you know, I walked into this one area and there was like 3 or 4 runners like mulling around because they just mill around. Otherwise, stare at a wall, be stupid. And then there was one clicker, and like you get into the area, and it's you've been listening and breaking open doors and stuff. There's no music, and then you hear that click, 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 or the horrible moan of the runners. The runners like, you know what I mean? But you go in this area, and then immediately, you got to drop behind cover and get down like this, and then Ellie and Tess do the same thing. And I don't think you're held to, like, there's no way to command them over. So there was one part later in the game when I was hiding behind something, and Ellie was kind of out. And I think, a runner would have seen her, but they didn't come at her, so I think we're all right.
I mean, it's funny, the pre-order pack for The Last of Us is called the Sights and Sounds pack, which now immediately makes a lot of sense.
Well, here, I've told Goldfarb nothing about The Last of Us, so I'm bouncing this off. How would you feel if I told you that Joel has something called Listen Mode, which basically lets him kind of see through walls?
Like a detective mode kind of thing.
Kind of, yeah. The basis of this is that, the way they explain it, which makes sense, is that obviously to survive and live in this world, you have to be on your toes all the time. And as a player, I totally felt that. Totally was tense. Like, and like you hear those moans, you get all freaked out, you drop down, and then you immediately tap, I think it's hold R2, go into listen mode. And what it does is, if any of the creatures are making noise or shambling around in your very general vicinity, you can see their outlines or see footfalls over there. So you can, because the whole point is that you need to move around these characters. Or you don't need to. If you want to, like I wanted to, go stealthy and get around everything, not try to fight everything. You can do it that way.
I mean, I think it's an interesting idea, right? I think it plays into making you feel like that character, I'm sure, because if you were listening around a corner, that's the information that would give you. But a little weird. I mean, like what, it's hard for me to picture it not having seen like the HUD, not having seen what this game looks like. I mean, is it, would you, Uncharted, for example, like the big thing people complain about with Uncharted is like some people don't like the shooting controls, some people don't like how it feels during combat. Like, does it generally feel like a Naughty Dog game, or is this like totally different?
See, that's what my preview I wrote over on IGN.com, which you should go read, was talking about, is the fact that it doesn't feel, I expected it to feel way more like Uncharted than it does. Very similar aiming mechanic, yes, where you hold down R or L1 to bring it up and R1 to shoot. Right. And even then, like, it's weird to say because, or hard to say, I should say.
Lots of says.
Is that when, what happened, this part where I was talking about with the clicker and the runners, right, was like the hardest part. It was, I died like 3 or 4 times because I was trying to figure out how to take them all down or what to do. And there'd be parts where the jig was up, they figured out that I was there and they're running at me. And so then I'm trying to shoot and they move so erratically that, and you need to get a headshot to take them down, I couldn't do it. But I couldn't really blame it. I couldn't say if it was more like Uncharted's aiming or if it's just like, there's a freaking crazy thing.
They're meant to be hard.
Right, exactly.
I mean, you mentioned that you're shooting. Like, the demos we've seen, it's like you pick a Molotov cocktail. Ellie has a brick. You're picking up a board. You're scrounging for materials.
And that's all there too. Like, it's one of those things that definitely the ammo was limited. I think my handgun only had 4 shots in it. I found another one eventually, and that had 2 in it. And so then it was kind of a balancing act of what do I want to do. And that was the big thing. Is that's why I was listening, because you can listen and then creep up on guys and take them down just like you were taking down people in the other demo, right? Where I put a runner in a chokehold, and just as you're about to do it, it says, do you want to strangle him? Or after you've done it, do you want to strangle them or do you want to shiv them? And so you can strangle them and do the whole thing where they're clawing at you, trying to get you, but then you can take a shiv and stab them in the neck. And they bleed out right there, and you can get to move on. But I'm guessing that the blood or just the sight of the blood tips off other people, because that's how I kept getting caught, I think, because they were seeing it. What do you getting all giggles?
This sounds like quite a game. I'm really excited to play this game.
It was, no, and we're talking about not being Uncharted. There's this section where we came out and there was a semi blocking, like lengthwise blocking this thing. I'm like, how do we get by this? And I did the whole, like, I walked over and tried to jump up it. I'm like, no, can't jump up it. And then I was like, oh, there's a drain pipe. And I walked over to the drain pipe, and Joel cannot climb like Nathan Drake.
It's not like a look for the red thing, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. That was the thing, too, that there was no, there was actually a few things I think they put in there maybe as a joke where, like, I was like, oh, that thing's yellow. Like, I'm going to go to it and be able to interact. No, you can't do that. Like, instead, you have to boost each other up. And then there was one part, which actually closed the demo, where you needed to pull a chain. And the chain was shiny, but it wasn't, like, totally like, oh, here, do this, dramatic, blah, blah, blah.
I love that. I mean, I think even in the E3 demo they showed, when you're walking through that hotel, it's like, and you can either have Ellie grab the ladder for you or climb up the thing yourself, and it's like, man, there's no like direct indicator, which I think is smart, and I think it makes you feel a little more grounded, a little more unsure of what to do.
Sure, and there are parts where, you know, like we'd open doors and Tess would go over and be like, oh, hey, Joel over here, like a normal person would, but it wasn't like beating me over the head. And usually when they did that, it was my cue to go do something else. Like I wanted, because the whole point, a big part of the game is scavenging, which we didn't know how it would work. This is our first time for me to try scavenging and then try to craft. And so you go around and you pick up, like, oh, here's a jug of, you know, gasoline or whatever. Here's a pair of scissors or whatever. And as you're getting them, little icons pop up that are the icon of what you're collecting, and then it's kind of filled in like a pie chart to let you know how much that counts for. And you put it in there, and then you go into your crafting menu, and you see the recipes you've unlocked. So I had a board that I could put nails in, or put the scissors in to kind of make like a spiked board and stuff like that. And you saw that you need one full complete pair of scissors and one complete board and stuff like that. It was really, they say that they're going to make a crafting system, and immediately I think of like Final Fantasy or DC Universe Online, where I'm collecting so much stuff to make this one thing. And this was like, you know, there's duct tape here and there, and you had to go find it. And like, it's not plentiful, but I felt like I could create those real things, create a Molotov cocktail.
This game sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Well, you can find out all about it in Greg's preview on IGN.com, and you can play The Last of Us yourself later this year.
Beyond.
Beyond.